Hola listener, ¿qué tal? Dos cervezas, por favor. Or for you who don't speak Spanish, what I just said was, welcome to the La Liga preview 2021 season of the Euro football verdicts. In today's episode, we're going to discuss who's going to clinch the La Liga title, who's going to take Champions League and Europa League finally. Also discuss who's going down to La Liga 2. And in the end, we're going to also touch on the best transfers and the worst ones, and also the players to watch in this La Liga season. So stay tuned and adios. Hola listener, welcome to the new edition of the Euro Football Verdicts. In today's podcast, we're gonna talk about La Liga. But for that, we need our co-host, Marco. Hola Marco, ¿qué tal?
Hola, ¿todo bien? ¿Y tú?
Muy bien, muy bien. Your Spanish is improving quite nicely, I see.
It's a lot of the seasons of Narcos, like similar. That's the only Spanish I really know.
Oh man, it's the only Spanish you really need, probably. So yeah, Marco, today we're gonna talk about La Liga, the last one of the Southern Leagues. Exciting season ahead, right?
Definitely. Last season we have seen a year where basically no team wanted to win the Liga, I would say. It really felt like the least worst eventually end up winning. This year has been a very different transfer market, but we're probably gonna touch upon that while we're gonna do the analysis. Yeah, probably a different environment might lead to the same result, might lead to a different result. Let's analyze team by team and let's analyze the standings and let's see what our prediction will be.
I'm very curious to see what you're going to say, but let's start first discussing what is going to be with our top four. So yeah, Marco, let's discuss top four. What do you have for the first place and the champion of La Liga?
So let me start from this. If we look at what happened last year, Real Madrid eventually won. There was Barcelona coming short, coming second. And then we had Atletico and Sevilla following up. If we're looking at what happened last year, Barcelona had, I would say, a better starting point compared to this year. They didn't have the whole Messi drama yet. The environment was a little bit better at the very least until the half of the season. Then you really start seeing the first cracks. While Real Madrid was trying to keep on going with the winning cycle. They changed the manager, but then indeed with Zidane coming back, really they were trying to get the best from the player they had. No more Ronaldo, but they got Hazard, hopefully to substitute Ronaldo. Wasn't really the case last year, but nonetheless, they managed to win the season. Well, for Atletico, it was really a transition season. A lot of youngsters. I must say, not all of them has performed as probably was expected. João Felix, first of the group being there, over 100 million for him, didn't really show the value yet. But that said, he's very young. He has an extra year under his belt of experience, so might be quite different today. And finally, we have the Europa League specialist, Sevilla. Now, if I have to look at what happened, the players they bought, the players they sold, I must say I see quite a similar result compared to last year. So I feel like I have to confirm the first four as for last year, with the caveat that the youngsters from Atletico will have that jump up. Otherwise, I potentially even see Sevilla coming third and Atletico coming fourth. I must say I don't see this is that far from reasonable as a forecast. Not sure about you, Alex.
I agree with your top four with your slight caveat. I would put Sevilla third instead of Atletico. I would put Atletico fourth. The reason, and let's maybe take it step by step. In terms of the fourth place of Atletico, I think it's basically still transition year 2.0. They made basically no changes to the team They only added the players who are on loan who are now permanent, like Morata and Carrasco. So those were like the main changes, so to say. Whilst Sevilla, on the other hand, with Acuna, with Rakitic, which is an amazing business, and Oscar Rodriguez, who was on loan by Real Madrid Leganés, they really strengthened their team. So they still might get another right back, wing back in Corona from Porto. They're discussing on 30 million for him, which would really add up to Lopetegui's team. And it's a team for me with one of the best center backs in Europe, with Koundé. They have a really strong midfield with Fernando and Rakitic being able to support the offense. You know, when Ocampos, Luke De Jong, I think it's a really, really interesting team that is very mature. The second year of Lopetegui, whereas Atletico, it's a great team, but I'm still feeling like the João Felix and those kind of players more tricky. I still don't know if Simeone just needs another season with them, you know, to mature and change the team.
Just a question there. Will he be given an extra season of transition? Because yes, he's there for many years. He's a legend almost of the club at the very least of definitely the most important figure, I would say, of this new millennium for Atletico. Really brought them back up to the high level. But it's a lot of money they have invested, like this year only. And yes, as you mentioned, it's just players on loan that were confirmed, but they spent 90 million. I'm not sure if he can release the pressure from the players. So last year he started the season being quite blunt. This is a transition season. We have a lot of youngsters they have to develop. So also the players might have come with a different mindset. That we know how the mindset is a key component of Simeone way of playing. It's really the garra, the South American garra, right? So coming there and giving 110% and running for each ball, etc. I'm not sure if they have the luxury to get another transition season. So I think that the players need to step up. But I agree with you. As mentioned, it's really in João Felix and the rest of the youngster to go the extra step and go the extra mile and become the players they can be for Atletico to come third. Else, fully agree with your overview. It's probably gonna be Sevilla third. Sorry. When we're looking at the top two, not sure if you want to add something, but I think Real Madrid this year is going to be the last year of this cycle. That was quite blunt from the president as well. No new signings, zero money spent, 0 million spent this year. Many players coming back on loan, Odegaard being probably the stars of the bunch. And next year, what are we going to expect? Mbappe, probably. That's what everyone is expecting. And possibly even someone else. They got rid of Bale. They're really trying to change this cycle and start a new winning cycle with this team. However, yes, Trincao, great player. Yes, Pjanic instead of Arthur. It's at the very least like-for-like substitution. But what's happening at Barcelona, I still don't think it's enough. And you also put Real Madrid above Barcelona. Anything you want to add, or do you think this was just mentioned, right? Even despite not buying any players, the domestic situation will be enough for Real to win.
No, I agree 100%, and your assessment for Barcelona is on the spot for me. I think it's a transition year, and the first transition year for Barcelona, maybe at least as hard, if not harder, than Atletico's transition with Simeone. So I think that's why Barcelona will finish second. I think by default, Real Madrid finishes first. In that sense, I think Real Madrid did the opposite of Atletico in that sense. Their reinforcements are the ones who were on loan, so they paid nothing for them. So in Odegaard, who will try to now take the place of James, and with the bailout, he might also have more chances to play and be the future Modric in that case, to take over the mantle. Odriozola is going to be a squad player on the right whenever Carvajal is not needed. But I think Also getting rid of Bales and James really frees up a lot of wages, which addition to selling Hakimi, Oscar Rodriguez, and Reguilon, we're talking
who weren't
million.
really players of the team either. That is the amazing part. They are starting doing the Chelsea, if you allow me the term, getting many young players, good young players, getting them alone, those that really develop, getting them back and putting in the team. Those that don't, I can still sell them for 10, 20 millions. And that's money that I can put to get the superstar.
Yeah, definitely. And those 85 millions that we all know where they are going directly next summer. It is going for Kylian Mbappe, no matter what. So it's the most open secret in the world. It's a contribution to the big sum, which will probably rely around 150 to 200 million euros in the end, because he will only have one further year of contract. So it's not like PSG can, let a 200 million man just walk out the door because they don't want to do business.
And he already mentioned he won't renew the contract, so also PSG, that doesn't really make sense to force their hand. He won't sign a new contract. He wants to move. He wants to see something else in another country. He's only been in France, I guess. Also French league, it's getting better. It's getting more competitive, but it's not at the level of the other four leagues: Germany, Italy, Spain, and England for the competitiveness. So I really do see why he also wants to get challenged elsewhere. Just one last thing before we move on Barcelona. I want to give a little bit of a provocation to the crowd, a little bit of being provocative here. And the best signing for Barcelona, Alex, in your opinion? I want to see if we are aligned here, but for me, it's gonna be Pedri.
Yes, I think based on how much also he costs. Right?
Correct.
It was a sum of 5 million euros. I think it was a really the result out of it. It's going to be amazing.
And he's a player that at 17 last year, most minutes played for Las Palmas, best assessment of Las Palmas, most key passes of Las Palmas at 17. On the other hand, Barcelona is putting a lot of eggs in 17 years old baskets between Ansu Fati and Pedri. I don't think they're ready. Again, it feels like a broken record, but this is going to be a transition year for them as well. They're just too young to carry the team, in my opinion. They're going to see a lot of first team football, but they cannot be the star at 17 years old. They just can't carry the team on their shoulder. It's simply too much.
Agree 100%. So Marco, now that we've covered our top four, let's also discuss who's going to get places 5 to 7, who are going to grant them Europa League for the next season. I think it's easier to start with 5, and to me, this is a team that stays outside of the top 4 by a very small margin. This team for me is Villarreal. I think
fully agree.
It's a great year for them. I think they did a lot of strategic signings. Let me start with the first one, Unai Emery. It's an amazing manager to deliver a Champions League football. He's very known for his works at Valencia and Sevilla to be able to deliver Champions League football. So I think this is a great appointment. Might not happen this year, but at least that. On the player front, they sold players that they didn't want in Unal and Ekambi, who were on loan. So they got 20 million for them. And in return, they bought Estupinan, which was one of the last left backs in La Liga last year, with almost 10 assists. He was an amazing player. Coquelin, who also came for 8 million. Rulli, a goalkeeper to be able to serve maybe even as a starter. Parejo for free, which is honestly
amazing,
astonishing deal. And also Kubo, unknown for Real Madrid. So the Japanese player that everyone talks about, I still don't know if he's able to deliver at that level, but at least it's an interesting signing. So it's a team that really got a lot of reinforcements.
Probably the main loss for them is going to be Santi Cazorla. 35 years old. A couple of years ago, he had to relearn how to walk. Like that was just absurd. And not only he managed to get back in football, where multiple, not only fans but even physicians were highly doubting that he would ever make it back at that level. But he delivered so much over the past 2 years. And last year, he had an amazing season. At the end of the year, he decided to retire for obvious reason. He's 35, and I'm saying retire, right? He's moved to Qatar, but that's basically the football retirement for these years, right? Either you go to Qatar or you go to US. But
let's be honest, with Parejo in his place, I think they're gonna suffer a bit, but they're not gonna cry over in terms of which is the player who played the most minutes in the midfield for Valencia last year. So
absolutely, no, fully agree with you. The quality is there. They're doing the next step, moving forward. They're really trying to go ahead, and I think they're doing it. It's just a matter of time until they can put a serious challenge to the Champions League. So it's a no-brainer for me for the 5th place. But then if we also looking at the 6th place, I have again someone that I believe it's really hard they won't get the position that we're putting it in, and that's the 6th, and that has to be for me Real Sociedad. There's one player, the David Silva, that as a Lazio fan, I'm very sad that he decided to move to Real Sociedad, but he's just amazing. He's 34 years old, but not feeling it. Last year, still at City, who gave a very good performance in the Premier League. Yes, not at the level of a godlike Liverpool, but still easily coming second. At the same time, decent spell in the Champions League. He still played a lot, scored a lot, made a lot of assists. Just an amazing player overall. Probably has still a couple of years in his legs. And yes, they did lose Odegaard, but moving to Real Madrid now. But either way, I think it's just a good team.
I agree 100%. So, but just to be, is this the man David Silva, the one you don't like, or is it the player?
The player. There is no man.
Okay. Quoting Iglitares' words on that one. I agree with you. I think this is not proving to be a very tense debate on this one. I think Real Sociedad will get 6th for sure, and I think your argument is flawless. I will add the 7th team for me. It's going to be Getafe. So I think it's a team that is a very well-oiled machine that made some loan deals permanent in Cucurella, for instance. I think it's very stable. We've seen how the team has developed and how their manager, Pepe Bordalás, who has a very aggressive, defensive, those hard men teams to play style, who has a clear chance in this case of delivering Europa League football once again. I think with Enes Unal from Villarreal, who was on loan at Valladolid, I think, and Chucho Hernandez, I think they really have the attacking options to be able to take another year. And they didn't lose anyone of big mention, so I think it's going to be a very interesting year for Getafe once again.
Yeah, fully agree. And what I also like about this team is really investing in the youngsters, making them part of the team, and they're really trying to do this on a stable basis so they have also a future. It's not just about the present. And yes, their present, as we're saying, might lead them to Europa League. But even the future is quite bright for them, I must say.
Fully agree. And I think we're aligned on this one. So let's go to our next section and discuss what is going to happen in terms of the bottom 3 in La Liga and who's going to be in La Liga 2 in the following season.
Welcome back to the next section where we analyze who's going to be the bottom team of the league and the other 2 that are going to be relegated. Now, I would say let's start, Alex, by looking at who were the team that got promoted last year, which are indeed Huesca, has been a couple of years in the second league, finally coming back to the first league. They had a very good spell last year, dominating, I would say, the second league. Then we had Cadiz. I must say, very good beginning of the season last year. Then with everything happening, they felt quite sure of going through, and they just stopped playing at a certain point. So that left Huesca to basically gain easily the first spot and win the Segunda Liga. But then we had also Elche, the third team. I guess there's a lot of to be said about this team. But last year they managed through the playoff, after not having really a very strong year, to win the playoff, scraping a couple of results with a couple of 1-0s also, for instance, in the playoff finals, and eventually managed to get back in La Liga. I know you have a lot to say about Elche, so I won't stop you, Alex, and please tell us a little bit more about this team that managed to get to the first division.
So Elche is, well, where to start? Elche, let's take you back 2 years ago. At this time, Elche was starting the campaign in the third division of Spanish football. They were expected to be one of the contenders to go up, it's true, but there was no given guarantee. They had an amazing season under their manager Pacheta, and they were able to go from the third to the second season, to the second league. Basically, what is happening is mid-season, even before coronavirus started, there was some rumblings around the purchase of the club by some Argentinians. Basically, the interested party was a football agent called Christian Bargarnik. This is a small-time football agent in Argentina, which has 1 or 2 clients in Europe, which is Dario Benedetto from Marseille and Lisandro Martinez from Ajax. And most importantly, he has 3 or 4 client managers. And one of them is, well, little known Diego Armando Maradona. Basically, all this was very interesting. The idea was to buy the club. They bought the club for 20 million euros reported fee, maybe even up to 30 million euros. The thing is, once they bought it, they were in the second division. Pacheta does an amazing end of the season, manages to go to the playoffs with the team to go up to the first division. They go to the playoffs. They manage to secure going up to La Liga, despite being the worst team of the playoffs by far. They go up, and 48 hours later, they fire their manager Pacheta, who just was amazing and got 2 promotions in a row, and appoint the manager, which is called Almiron. Almiron is a client of Christian Bagarnik, the new owner of the club. They started selling some players, and we are now in the second weekend of La Liga. They didn't pay the first one, and basically the team has 15 players to use. This might change in a couple of weeks because they might get some players from Argentina whose agent is Christian Bargarnik, but still, it's an absolute mess of a club. Marco, if you don't agree that they will be last, I don't know what.
I think there is no argument really for Elche this year. They didn't buy a single player that was coming from La Liga, not even from a team that got relegated from La Liga. They only bought player with no experience, like 23 years old from Zaragoza, like Raúl Guti. That was the big purchase. But can Raúl Guti really be enough? After they lost key players of their team, either for free, Jonatas, just to name one, that on the other hand had experience of La Liga a couple of years back before he moved to the Saudi Arabian countries. But I really don't see how this can be anything but the president trying to make some money out of the sponsorship from being in La Liga, to be honest. It really feels like they're not even trying to stay up.
No, I agree fully with you. I think Elche will be, okay, best case scenario, not rock bottom, but second to bottom. I think that would be a great season for Elche, given the way they're today, but they're going down for sure.
Fully agree.
I invite you to then tell us what you think is going to be the other team that is going down with Elche. Give me one of them.
I think that second from last, from what I see, has to be Huesca. They have done some business. They bought a couple of players. I just think it's not enough. I mean, how can you expect Slovas, a 32 center defender, 32 years old center defender from Greece, played at Leganes last year, decent season, but it's not good enough. I just don't see that good mix, which I believe it's key when you move from the second division to the first division and want to stay up, of experience and quality cheap young players. You don't have too much money to really buy the best of the bunch, right? That's the ones that, for instance, Barcelona can get. Barcelona got Pedri. Pedri wasn't bought by Huesca. He would never move to Huesca. But you need to have that good mix. I don't see it. It's just not enough business being done during this transfer market. Again, feels like one of those teams that managed to get to the Liga, but just doesn't have the financial power and the structure to move forward. Not even the brand, possibly, because as we know, sometimes just a very famous manager or sporting director is enough to convince a player to move there. And we have seen it many times in Italy with Benevento that managed to buy Sandro, for instance, and they just got newly promoted, and Sandro was playing for Tottenham the year before. It's not really happening now for Huesca. I think it's just not enough.
I will disagree with you. I think Huesca, for me, gets the save. Because I think with Sergio Gomez on loan from Dortmund, he's an amazing, bright player. A 20-year-old, I know he only did 3 assists last season, but he was still growing in the league. They kept Mir, who did 9 goals in only half a season for them. Now they'll have a full season with Mir. I think they might save themselves on this one. Plus, they got Insua from Schalke, and Maffeo on loan from Stuttgart, which is players would have a more robust experience in the Bundesliga. I think they might. They're a candidate, but I don't see them as the second worst team in La Liga. I have another candidate that is a La Liga team last season, and for me, that candidate is Osasuna.
Interesting. Osasuna. I don't have it in my shortlist.
Yeah, Osasuna's best striker, Avila, 10 goals in 34 games and 2 assists. Very interesting player, remained in the team. There's only one little caveat. He will be injured with a knee ligament until end of March. So their best striker is out. Then for me, their second best player, Estupiñán, as a left back, went now back to Watford and wasn't sold to Villarreal, as mentioned before. Their left back, which is Lato, who went back to Valencia. So now they had to get a player called Juan Cruz from La Liga 2. He did 9 assists, so that's quite interesting. But it's not the same level playing in La Liga and playing in the first in the second division. So I think that's why Osasuna will struggle throughout the season. If their main striker isn't there, their main assister in Estupiñán isn't there, I think they will have a really, really tough time.
Yeah, for me, I see another team from La Liga getting into the second division, to be honest, and that's Alaves. A couple of years ago, we were seeing Alaves, at least for half a season, really challenging for Europa League. I'm not saying they were an established team in La Liga, but definitely they were quite comfortable in staying up. Every season was mid-season was the expected level, but they could easily, with 1-2 extra win, go to Europa League and maybe even something more, right? But last year they really struggled. Like they came, if I'm not mistaken, 3 points only from relegation last year. And I just don't see the transfer market to cover for that gap that always is there. Like, yes, they did get John Guidetti back. But again, is that enough? They just got players for free. Rodrigo Battaglia, that probably you might know. And then Daverson from Palmeiras, 29 years old, coming from Brazil. Carlos Isaac, decent right wing back from Atletico Madrid, but again, he was playing the second division. He never really made it for Atletico. He was in Atletico Madrid B. And the best one of the rest, from my understanding, or at least my football judgment, it's Florian Lejeune from Newcastle. Again, is that enough to cover the gaps that obviously were there last year? I don't think so. I just think they didn't do enough. And again, if you look at Celta, that on the other hand was also very close to being relegated last year, they have the one star, Iago Aspas. Like, Iago Aspas alone can save Celta Vigo. I don't see such a player for Alaves, the one player that alone can change the whole season. I just think they didn't do enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you have valid grounds on that one, but in that sense, I think your Huesca argument is stronger actually than your Alaves, because at least it's a team who also didn't lose tremendous amount of players. You know, it's kept it relatively stable. It has a fairly organized team and club. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. I would also put, I'm not yet sure, because in terms of quality, another team that I could put in there would be Cadiz. Cadiz has, the issue of Cadiz is simply, the negative side is their players are very low quality. Let's be honest here. The quality of the players is low. They got Negredo now at 34.5, I think, which you could say, okay, it's an interesting purchase. But all the others are absolutely horrible purchases. Like when you see a player like Lozano, who is the ever touted as a great youngster, which right now he's no longer a youngster, and the people still assume that. He did 1 goal and 2 assists in La Liga 2. So this is the kind of players they're buying for 2 or 3 million euros. The issue and the good thing about Cadiz is the same. They have 36 players today's roster, which is a lot. On the other hand, 36 players might come in handy if they're cannot get rid of some of them in a very long season, hardness season, where you can rotate the squad quite quickly. So I think it's the opposite from Elche if we think about it. Currently, Cadiz has over the double amount of players that Elche has. So I think it actually might be a good one for Cadiz. So I would agree in not putting them down.
Correct. Same thing for me. They will definitely struggle a lot, but I see them being the first of the ones staying up. Main reason, as you mentioned, they got a lot of players. Not all of them will be good, but just from the sheer number, some of them will. And I think Negredo, 34 now, being 35 soon, despite the age, I think he's a very good player for a newly promoted team. He has the experience. He can carry the attack by himself. He can motivate the team just to do what's needed to win those games. You know, the experience, and then just corner, good header, bam, goal. You get 1 point. That is what you need when you need to save yourself from relegation. And he has the experience, and he have the technical skills to do that. I think by just Negredo by itself, even if I don't look at the rest of the 15 players they bought, that for me is sufficient to see them as one of the candidates to stay up.
Okay, in that case, I was torn in Cadiz situation, but I'll give you Huesca for Cadiz. In that case, I'll agree with you, and I'll also say Huesca goes down, but man, for sure Osasuna will go down. I cannot see Alaves going down instead of Osasuna. It's just,
You give me Huesca, I'll give you Osasuna, and we make a deal.
Yeah, the important is we both agree on Elche. So finishing part 2, let's then move to part 3, where we're going to discuss La Liga in terms of the transfer market and players to watch. So welcome back, listener, to our last section of today's podcast, we're going to discuss a bit on the transfer market in Spain. Marco, can you please give me, a lot of things happened in terms of quantity, maybe not those huge signings that we were not expecting them either way. But can you give me your best transfer of this Spanish transfer market?
I must be honest, if I need to look at the price quality of the players that were bought and the impact they will have on the team, one stands out from the crowd. And it's not Dani Parejo. That's probably many newspapers looking at. It's just for amazing player for free, right? But for me, Rakitic, 1.5 million is just absurd. He's a player that I believe any team in the world would put at a starting 11, and easily in a different season, in a different scenario, would have costed 10 times more. Yes, there is up to 9 million of bonuses according to how the team will perform, but just Rakitic in the Sevilla midfield, I mean, it's gonna destroy, I think.
Yeah, I think with we need to put the Parejo situation on the side, because otherwise I think it's Parejo, and because, well, for free, you know, what he's going to bring to that Villarreal midfield, I think he would be the best transfer in that sense. And I agree with your assessment in terms of delivering on the field, but I would also add another thinking, which is delivering on the field today and being able to deliver financially for the team tomorrow. And in that case, I would disagree with Rakitic. I would go a bit more expensive to the 10 million mark. And I would say Cucurella to Getafe, who was on loan. And honestly, he's a dream of a player. He was a 10 assists a season guy. He's going to be a 15 assists a season guy. He is just an amazing player. And with a lot of resale value at 22 years old, he's for me already one of the best wingbacks in Europe, and he's such a cheap purchase. I was shocked that only 10 million, which is the buy-up option, but still amazing purchase, I think, for Getafe.
Yeah, but we see that very often in Spain, right? These release clauses or agreement that clubs have, and that's the same for Pedri, which again I've already mentioned before. Definitely needs a shout out for 5 million player. It's an amazing purchase for Barcelona. Just if you need to, as you mentioned, right, look at the current impact or future impact, whatever you want to put. Don't think it's just the current impact. It's going to be there this season for Barcelona, but I think it's going to be a great player in the future. But yeah, Cucurella, amazing player, really. Like on the left, there's not that many 21 years old that can deliver this much, and with being so consistent, that's the main thing for Cucurella. He's not the Fati, let's say, that, you know, the dribble and the really fancy stuff to look at, you know, with the ball. He's way more consistent, but he does what's needed all time. That's what I like about the player so much. Really feels like a 30 years old, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's experience and youth combined, delivering. So I would go for Cucurella, but I also see that Rakitic is a possible alternative. And from the best to the worst, following that Rakitic point, the worst transfer for me, and I think there's a lot of things that goes into this transfer, it has to be Miralem Pjanic as the worst transfer of La Liga, for a very simple reason, and it's nothing against Pjanic. Let's forget the whole amount of money, the 60 million, 70 million for Arthur. It's the whole Pjanic plus 10 million for Arthur is probably the best bit of business I've seen from Juventus in the last couple of years, since the free purchases of players like Pogba. I think Pjanic is way past his best. He might still deliver for another 2 years, but Arthur could be perfect for the midfield, playing next to De Jong for the next 10 years of Barcelona. And I think it was a big mistake of Barca to let him go.
You know what reminds me of this deal? Eto'o and Ibrahimovic. It just feels so much the same situation. Barcelona wanted to get rid of a player, not because he's not good. Actually, Arthur is amazing, but because of his, let's say, character, or he wasn't really a good fit for what is Barcelona culture, what Barcelona believes in, and so on. It was quite obvious. The second half of the season, he didn't play that much. Often he wasn't even on the bench. There was something more going on, and I just guess they had to get rid of him. And eventually they found Juventus being keen, despite the COVID situation, in March, April, to start a conversation and eventually close the deal. I just guess they were quite happy to get a like-for-like substitution, and they weren't aiming for anything else. They needed to get the money back somehow, and they got it. But I fully agree with you. Definitely a step back in the long term for sure. Possibly in the short term as well. At least for how I like the players. Arthur, great capability of playing the field. Pjanic never really delivered to be the new Pirlo of Juventus, which he was bought for, really. Completely different kind of player. Very good free kicks, but again, and that was probably the main thing at Juventus, I would say, that was putting it above other players they could buy. But then again, at Barcelona, you have Messi. Will you really have Pjanic kicking free kicks? I doubt it. So I agree with you, not a great purchase, but I have another one in mind. And it's really about the sheer amount of money that you're spending for the little improvement that it gives to your team. And that has to be Alvaro Morata at Chelsea. From Chelsea, to Atletico. 56 million euros. For a player that is not always in your starting 11. How? I mean, yes, there was a deal coming years back, but it's happening now. It's 56 million for something that's not for someone that's not starting every game. I think that's absurd. Not sure what your thoughts is, Alex, but I much rather get Pjanic at that point at Atletico.
Well, the thing about the Pjanic situation is, you are also losing Arthur. That's what, for me, it's really troublesome in the whole Pjanic situation, is that you're losing a player for him. So that's why I get a bit more shocked on the other situation than the Morata deal. I mean, Alvaro Morata, he was the bench player last season already at Atletico, but let's be honest, from the bench, 12 goals and 2 assists in La Liga is not that bad. If you're assuming that, at least, he's...
Yeah, but that's a 50 million player, 20 million tops. Like 12 goals, 2 assists, you can buy anyone else from La Liga for 15, 20 million. You don't have to spend 56.
You have a point in terms of the price, but at least, you're not losing a Koke in the middle of the deal, or Saul. That's for sure. For me, what
no, I agree. I'm just astonished by the sheer amount of money. Like Arthur, very bad deal. Arthur Pjanic, very bad deal for Barcelona. Period. Like no arguments can go against that. I just think that similarly, this one it's quite a good question mark for the team. But last honorable mention has to be for me David Silva as well. I have to quote him. I mean, I was so excited when he was about to come to Lazio that I cannot avoid to mention him when we're talking about the best purchase of La Liga this year. I think still an amazing player and will still be an amazing player for 1-2 extra years. Paying only the wages, it's really gonna change the Sociedad team, I think.
No, I agree. It's going to be very interesting to see David Silva taking the role that belonged to Odegaard and see how he's going to be able to combine with William Jose and the others at Sociedad, who have a very interesting team, we must say. And another thing I wanted to discuss with you is the player to watch, which is going to be the young player to watch for this season's La Liga. For me, and nationality bias aside, I have to go with Trincão. I think he's a player who's gonna... I know he was costly at 31 million euros coming from Braga, but he's really going to be one for the future. You know, he's gonna mark a decade, I think, in Portuguese football. And I think he is a player that it's going to be in, not this year, but in 2-3 years, he's going to be a starter at Barcelona, taking the mantle of alongside Ansu Fati, because you can't do it alone, of Lionel Messi.
And you just mentioned mine, Ansu Fati. What a player for 17 years old. He just, during this national section in September, he just scored the youngest player to be called for Spain after 80 years. And we know how Spain likes to call in young players. The youngest goal scorer of Spain ever, and the youngest player to score a brace in a European competition ever. It's just so much. I think this can easily be the season that really puts him at the level of the big ones, of the gods of football, the Messi, the Mbappe that we have right now, and so on. I don't know. I just like the player so much. He's amazingly young and stupidly good for his age, to be honest. I don't know. I'm in love with him. I'm gonna be honest. So I'm very biased with my decision. At the same time, there's also a couple others that I think we have to mention. Odegaard, first and foremost. Pedri, we already mentioned. And we have touched upon a couple of those when we were discussing about the transfers, right? But also, the Leganés has a couple of young, interesting players that definitely can do well. But I don't know. For me, Ansu Fati can easily get to 10 goals this season, and 10 goals for 17 years old. It's the player is really blossoming.
Yeah, I just worry about the Odegaard and Pedri situation. I don't think they will play most of the games. So I think that's a clear one, especially in the Pedri situation. And while I have it clear for them, that's a bit my worry with Trincão and Ansu Fati. With Messi on one side, and then on the other, Dembele, and also Coutinho coming back. Somehow Barcelona never wants to give the 10 position, you know, to a player. They want to keep it as a 2-8s, or, you know, two strikers, one playing behind the other, but there's no 10 for Coutinho. So normally they put Coutinho on the wing. So that's the only worry I have. But I think you're right. Of those players that we mentioned, Ansu Fati will play the most, because of him playing on the left. Trincão plays on the right. So I think while you have Messi, you have Messi. That's it. End of discussion. So I think it's going to be interesting. But yeah, okay. I'll give you that one. I think Ansu Fati is going to be the young player to watch, followed in this case by Trincão. I think the future looks bright for Barcelona, as we can see and mention. But as we said at the first couple of minutes, it's gonna take a while to get there.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it really looks like a new golden generation for them, doesn't it? Whether the player are coming from the Cantera, where they got bought, they really have a very strong future 11. Let's put it that way. That is just waiting to get in the first team. It's also going to be an interesting year, generally speaking, for the older, right? Coutinho coming back after he was put on loan, and he, not saying destroy the dreams of Barcelona, but he definitely helped during that epic game that Bayern Munich Barcelona was. And at the same time, Griezmann, expensive purchase for Barcelona, for different reason, never really got back to the high level of quality he was showing beforehand at Atletico. This year, he really needs to deliver. He has no excuses no more. There is no Suarez. It's going to be him carrying the team up front, and Messi supporting here on the right. But again, Messi, what's going to be his mindset? Question mark.
Yeah, and that's it, listener. From our side, we leave you with a question mark on the Suarez situation and the Messi situation. A lot of question marks, but we also provided you with some answers. So that was it from us. Thank you so much, Marco.
Thank you so much.
And yes, listener, that was our La Liga review for the upcoming season. Remember to like us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram also, and on Spotify. Thank you and see you next time.